Oh my god. They did it! They pulled through! Oh my god! Oh my god! They did it! They made
Ladies and gentlemen, today is a great day in video game history as Sony has decided to cancel their plan of requiring Helldivers 2 PC players to link a Sony PSN account. After all the review bombing on Steam, the countless amounts of people complaining, and even those who lived in specific regions where PlayStation Network was not allowed for them to create an account in their region, Sony has decided to postpone, or in fact possibly even decide to go against their original plan of requiring people to connect a PSN account. Okay, have I gotten your hype boners up a little bit higher today? Alright, now let's just chill out for a second and let's kind of explain the whole situation. Now, for those of you that actually have not been keeping in the loop, and I would be very surprised if you weren't keeping in the loop, as it's been one of the biggest stories in the gaming industry as of the last week. Recently, it was announced by Sony, not by the developers of Helldivers 2, but by Sony, the publishing company, that Sony was going to require all Steam players, or basically players that were playing Helldivers 2 on PC, that they were going to be required to connect a personal PlayStation Network account to their Steam account in order to have access to Helldivers 2. This decision massively impacted the opinions of many people who were playing Helldivers 2 on PC, with very good reasons as to why they were pissed off about it. Now, why were Sony so impotent on basically trying to get people to make PlayStation Network accounts in the first place? Well, the reason that Sony gave for why they wanted people to make accounts and link them to their Steam account in order to play the game was what they claimed to be security reasons. You know, that thing that every person who under the sun has any form of account would always worry about, you know, the security of their own personal information within an account that they operate and or use on a daily basis that may or may not contain some personal information that if it were to get data breached would possibly put their life in jeopardy. You know, it's kind of ironic that the company that more or less claims that they wanted to do this for security purposes is also the same gaming company that's been data breached like, what, around 10 times in the last 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken? Now, don't get me wrong, this is not meant to be a video shitting on Sony as a whole entire company. Like, yeah, I might be an Xbox fanboy around here, but they make some pretty good games, but I can't lie and pretend like Sony's own security is not, you know, fucking awful. But if you want the real reason as to why they basically were making people have to connect their PlayStation Network accounts, it's mainly just because Sony wanted to bump their own internal numbers of people that were actively playing on PlayStation. See, even if a person is not directly playing on a PlayStation account or on a PlayStation console, if they have a PlayStation Network account connected to a game that is both shared between PlayStation and PC, that technically to their investors counts as an active PlayStation Network player, whether or not they're playing the game on a PlayStation console. And this decision also decided to confuse a lot of people who either A, already were used to stuff like this playing PC games, or B, people who didn't play in the Helldivers community at all. See, someone like me who has never touched this game, although I've heard the massive amount of praise it's gotten, and I understand it's a very loved and respected game, I personally didn't see the problem with this at first. As someone who has played a numerous amount of PC games on Steam that still require me to download third-party launchers of the games that they're basically, you know, being published from. The biggest example has to be all the Rockstar games that I own. For pretty much every single one, I have to have the Rockstar Games launcher and a Social Club account in order to fully access those games, which, again, even I think is a fucking stupid choice. But for most of us, you're kind of used to having to make second accounts on PC with second, you know, third-party launchers in order to actually launch the game that you paid for, which, yeah, a lot of us don't like. Even I can admit that I think it's annoying, but most of us were used to it. But again, like I said before, the biggest reason why people were outraged for this at first is mainly just because of how shitty Sony's security is, despite the fact that they're claiming to do this for a tighter security purpose. But oh no, that's not the only reason as to why people were mad about this, but the second biggest reason as to why people were mad about this is mainly just because this would effectively cut off a large majority of Helldivers 2's entire player base. Basically, Helldivers 2's player base that play the game on Steam only Steam because they can't access PlayStation Network in their region. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest here. I have no idea if these regions are also not allowed to sell PlayStation consoles, but I do know for a fact that these regions are not allowing their consumers to more or less make PlayStation Network accounts. Basically meaning that had this change have gone through, they would have entirely cut off the entire section of their player base who were playing this game completely fine before this with just a normal Steam account. However, sadly, it actually does seem like those 177 regions have already gone through, and unfortunately, Helldivers 2 is no longer available for purchase, at least according to the Steam database Twitter account. Which, when you actually think about it, Sony, I get wanting to actually boost your own internal PlayStation, player count for the entire active first and or second quarter. If we're not mistaken, we are in the second quarter of the year already. So I can understand wanting to boost your player numbers to make it look good for investors. But you didn't think about this like beforehand, you know what I'm saying? Here's what they could have done if they really wanted to make this a requirement. Like, yes, people still would have been mad about this, even if they were to do what I'm about to suggest, but I guarantee it would have saved them from a bigger headache in the long run. Firstly, if they were going to go through with this change entirely, they should have evaluated what regions and or countries can and cannot have access to the PlayStation Network. The countries that can would be required to connect a PlayStation Network account. However, the regions that can't would not be allowed to. First of all, that's like the most simple change right then and there, so you don't cut off your active player base of the game who can still access Steam. Secondly, if you were going to hypothetically basically cut off the entire region as a whole, even before this change was, decided to be backpedaled on, like basically the day it was supposed to go live, if you were going to go through with this change 100% clean, don't you think it would have been at least a little bit wiser to either A, offer some benefits for people just so that they can enjoy the game while they still have it, or at the very least, offer them a full-blown refund? Now, thankfully, Steam does process refunds, at least in a very mature and respectful way for most people, especially those who actually, kind of needed to refund the game because they can't play it in their region. But sometimes that stuff isn't 100% guaranteed. And like I said, you would have thought Sony would have at least put 2 and 2 together and got the number 4 instead of the number 5. I feel like this decision is the equivalent of somebody putting dishes in their fucking washing machine. Like, yeah, you're gonna get those dishes cleaned by putting them in there, but bitch, you could have easily put them in a more normal dishwashing scenario, or hell, you could have done it the hard way by just filling up your sink with fucking dish detergent, and you probably still would have gotten them more clean by just putting them in the washing machine. But at least we can say, for now, Sony decided to go ahead and basically backpedal on their decision, which, to be honest with you, a lot of people still respect. However, of course, people are still not happy with the fact that this game is still blocked in those 177 regions. Of course, if any updates do come out, there will always be, a Steam database update on Twitter, and people will most likely be making a ton of updates about it and things like that. And currently, as of making this video, the game on Steam is currently sitting with around 300,000 negative reviews and is currently sitting at a mixed overall review status. That is quite a jump considering the fact that not even 5 days ago, this game was overwhelmingly positive. That is insane to me. But yeah, that's basically it with the entire Helldivers situation up until this point. And again, like I said, if more stuff does come out, there'll definitely be a ton of update videos from a lot of different YouTubers and a lot of people basically on the media. I might make another video about it. I guess we'll see what happens then. But hopefully Sony does stick to their guns and basically decides to keep this change active, because if they go back on this decision to more or less, keep the PlayStation account separate from Steam, then we're going to have a serious problem. But again, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But thank you guys very much for watching, and take care.